A lot of you have reached out to ask me, as a Power BI professional, what conference should you go to in 2025? And since I'm more on the SharePoint and Microsoft 365 side of things, I decided to bring in an actual Power BI expert to help you answer that. John, first time on the channel. Thank you so much for taking the time. You've been in the Microsoft 365, Power BI, and Fabric fields for over a decade, forever now. So I'm sure a lot of people know you, but for those who don't, can you introduce yourself?
Well, first of all, expert's a strong word, but just between the two of us, I'll go with it.
Okay, good.
Between the two of us, I'll go with it. Yeah. Well, it's just by way of quick background. I mean, you and I know each other from the SharePoint, Microsoft 365 community, and my focus on it when I first really heavily got into SharePoint itself was on what you would call the persona today of business intelligence, right? Remember way back when we had Excel services,
Performance Point.
Performance Point was one of them, and Power Pivot for SharePoint.
I remember setting them up as an admin.
Yeah.
So I was the one setting up the service applications, the service accounts.
And why is your hair not gray?
Well, it's here. It's starting here.
You're still young. Okay.
Yeah. So I remember setting them up, but as soon as I would set them up, I'd be like, nope. Not my problem anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where you came in.
Well, yeah, and what happened ultimately with those workloads is they spun out and spun into, that really was where Power BI came from in the first place, right? It came out of Power Pivot for SharePoint. So I've kind of followed along that whole process. Now, Power BI is obviously its own thing right now with its own, it's in its own org structure within Microsoft now, and it's actually part of Azure Data all up. So yeah, I just kind of followed that along, built a company along the way that Tygraph, I'm wearing a Tygraph shirt, that did analysis for Microsoft 365. So I always had both feet in both worlds, really.
But you really mentioned something called Azure Data, which as a learner, and somebody that's not in the field as much as you, right? We had Power BI that was in the Power Platform. And when it launched, it was in the Power Platform from a marketing point of view. Still is from a marketing point of view. The logo's still there. And then the conference got renamed. There was a data conference, then it got renamed to Azure Data Conference for a few months.
That's a while back, yeah.
Well, last year, no?
Yeah. There's
a while back.
There's
different. I feel like there's a bigger story there.
Yeah.
But anyway, there was a conference called the Azure Data Conference that got renamed into the Microsoft Fabric.
Ultimately, Microsoft, it's better to think because.
That's where you're the expert.
Yeah. So what fundamentally happened is there was the world of business apps, okay, and Power BI lived in the world of business apps for a long time, and that's the same group you find Dynamics in, right? And Power Platform's in that same group, right? Yeah. And Power BI was really the first Power app, or I shouldn't call it Power app. First part of the Power Platform. It was the first
Power
pillar.
Platform app.
First Power Platform product. Yeah. So, and then along came Power Apps and Power Automate, which was Flow at one point, right?
Yeah.
And they consolidated under some certain leadership. And then Power BI had a different leadership within that group. Well, ultimately, the leadership of Power BI within that group became in charge of all data within Microsoft, which is in Azure. So Power BI from an engineering standpoint, this is why you got to follow the bouncing ball, is part of Azure Data.
Okay.
But from a marketing standpoint, it's still part of the Power Platform. And that's where all the confusion comes in.
Okay. Well, I'm happy. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's confused by that, at least. But now let's go back to our question. So if we look at the conferences and training opportunities we have today, in North America, we have the Power Platform Conference and the Fabric Conference. Yep. In Europe, we have the same thing. And we also have the new conference in Germany.
That's correct.
Which is the European Business Apps Summit.
Yep.
Which kind of combines both of them.
Which has
both Fabric.
It's actually got Power Platform as well. But yes.
But let's say I'm from North America and I'm a Power BI. I want to learn Power BI.
You're a Power BI person.
Which conference do you think I'm going to get the most value out of? Do you think I should go to the Power Platform Conference or should I go to the Fabric Conference?
That's going to depend on your focus area.
I love that your SharePoint background. It depends.
That's
always the answer.
It always depends. It always depends. So Power BI uniquely straddles both of those. I've got a slide that shows you all the collaborative apps in one circle, all of the data things from Fabric and another circle. And right in between connecting them all is Power BI. And that's valid. That's not just architecture, right? Because people use Power BI collaboratively, and they use Power BI as data scientists, data engineers, et cetera, et cetera. So it really depends on your workload. So coming back to the conference thing, that data conference that you were talking about before, was for, think of it as a conference for DBAs.
Okay.
The people who care and feed databases, make sure they're always available, make sure they're secure, blah, 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 blah. All the infrastructure stuff, right? And then there was and I'm going to forget the name of it, but a few years ago, COVID kind of stopped it. But there was a business conference. That was the dynamic side. And that's where Power BI had a lot of it. It's worked. And those were the people who were building reports, basically participating in the collaborative aspects of Power BI. So today, the Fabric conference puts those two together.
Okay.
Right, so it doesn't have any dynamics in it, but it takes the Power BI part of that and jams it together with all the DBAs. So if your focus on Power BI is around the care and feeding of data, of the more infrastructure side, even building of models can kind of go both ways. But modeling, the more geeky side of things, probably the Fabric conference is the way to go for you. If you are interested in Power BI from a how do I communicate my data results to my users? How do I integrate into Teams? How do I integrate into SharePoint? How do I spread the word? That's going to be your Power Platform conference. To answer the question, but the real answer is go to both.
Of course, that's always the answer if you have the budget for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I recap, if you're a bit more like me, where your data is already pretty, you just connect to something, you build out your report, and you're more on the how do I put the visuals? How do I make it pretty and share it with people?
And you want to do something with it, right?
And
you want to take action, You
want to take action, Power Platform.
Yeah.
But if you're more on the back end of things, whether you're a DBA or you do the DAX queries and you really make sure that the data is clean and ready, the Fabric conference, you're going to get a lot more value.
And I feel, that oversimplifies it, but yes, that's
at a very high level.
Because the answer is it depends.
It's always it depends.
Yep.
So hopefully, I know we do not know yet. Hopefully, you will be at the Fabric one.
Likely.
Very likely. And there might be a discount code that people can use if they go to the Fabric conference.
As soon as I know, I'll let you know. Yeah, there would be. There certainly would be, yeah. I don't know what it is.
Awesome. Well, as soon as we know, it will be on the description of the video below. This way, if you want to register for the Fabric conference, you get to save around $100, which can get you quite a few drinks in Vegas. So we'll always take that. And if you are from Europe, you'll have two options, either end of May in Germany with the European Business App Summit, or September, I think.
Yeah, that's the European Power. No, there's a European Fabric Conference
European
in September.
Fabric Conference
and
in
there's
September.
a European Power Platform Conference as well.
In Vienna in June.
In June, that's right.
Wow, so many conferences to keep track of. I'll put the link to all of them in the description below. But John, thank you so much for taking the time and clarifying things for me as well, because having that history lesson of how things moved,
oh, I just hit the top of the waves.
It makes more sense. Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more.
There are scars.
There are scars. That's why SharePoints are so popular.
That's correct.
In the SharePoint world. But
that's correct.
Thank you so much for being here. And
it's a pleasure,
thank you everyone for watching.
Thanks.
See you soon.